So the point of today's clip is twofold. I'm using Jimmy Dore to introduce you to the rabbit hole about the military-industrial complex. This is something President Eisenhower warned us about in the 50s. It's a rabbit hole you have to travel down. The second purpose of the clip is just to introduce you to Jimmy Dore himself. And when he gets going, few, if any, do it better. Take a listen.
These wars aren't meant to be won. They're meant to be ongoing. They had a peace agreement. You know that. They had a peace agreement almost immediately after the invasion, Russia invaded. They had a peace agreement, and the Ukraine agreed to it. Zelensky agreed to it. And they flew Boris Johnson out there and said, you can't do this or we're going to kill you. And so he did. That's why he can't do it. And so that's why this war is ongoing, and they have to rip people off corners and put them in vans to go fight in this fucking war. The average age of the Ukraine military is over 40 years old.
Have you seen the videos of guys getting kidnapped?
Yes, I can't even watch it.
Guys with their families. They grab a guy.
They just grab him.
Grab him, and people are screaming. They're throwing him in a van. You're going to go fight in a war.
I think you lost the war when we already did. So they did. Yeah. So, and then, of course, nobody knows how this war started. You've had Dave Smith on. He explained it.
Yeah.
You know, nobody still to this day knows about the Maidan coup, that the United States got in bed with right-wing Nazis in Ukraine to overthrow a democratically elected government. And then they started bombing the people in the east of Ukraine, called the Donbass, and they wouldn't stop. They had two peace agreements called the Minsk Accords. Guess who violated them? The Ukraine. It wasn't that. And so, I've heard people say that, and of course it was the expansion of NATO, right? The threat of putting NATO on the border of Russia, which everybody from Kissinger to Chomsky and everybody in between said, that's a mistake, don't do that. Well, that's of course what they're doing. And so what's the point of NATO anymore? And then this whole idea, they're doing the domino theory again. Oh, well, if we allow him to do this to Ukraine, he's going to go to Poland next. And it's the same fucking shit they said all the time. It's the domino theory. And again, the world's terrorists are the United States. Look what we did to Iraq. Look what we did to Libya. Libya, the most successful country in all of Africa. The guy created the eighth wonder of the world with the way how he delivered water and turned deserts into farmland. And everybody had a house and everybody had education and health care. And we turned it into a failed state run by terrorists with open slave markets. Who did that? Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton did that. And they'll never have to pay a price for that. Barack Obama, the most he'll do is go, that was a mistake.
Now, why did they get rid of Gaddafi?
Because he was going to start a currency of Africa that was going to compete with the U.S. dollar and the euro. And they can't have that because the way the United States controls the world is because the United States dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So that's why they can put sanctions on all these countries. And so what they're doing, which they shouldn't do, they're weaponizing the U.S. dollar. And so like when countries want to trade with each other, they have to go take their currency, change it into U.S. dollars so they can trade. And a lot of it was based on the petrodollar, which, by the way, Saudi Arabia just quit. They didn't renew it. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
So, and all of a sudden, CBS News is starting to do news stories about how Saudi Arabia was involved in 9/11. All of a sudden, 24 years later, all of a sudden, oh, you know what? Turns out there was something happened. And they're like, you mean 2 weeks after they decided to not renew the fucking petrodollar? Now CBS News is allowed to talk about that and investigate it, which when I talked about it, it got demonetized. But anyway, so that's why, because Gaddafi was doing that. Mm-hmm. He was going to set up a currency for all of Africa, and it was going to be based on have a gold standard. And so they're like, no, you're not. You're not fucking doing that. And they made up a bullshit thing like, we got to save the people. Whatever. You guys, they don't give a fuck about the people in America. They got veterans and everybody else living under every goddamn bridge in this country. You think if they gave a shit about those people, don't you think they'd start helping the people right outside the front door?
Right.
Instead of, no, we got to go help people in Libya, and we got to help people. It's about helping people in Ukraine, and it's about helping people in Taiwan, and it's about no. This is all about an upward transfer of money. This is about balkanizing countries and turning it over to BlackRock and Vanguard. That's what this is about.
Of course, by now you already recognize Joe Rogan. There's little to say there. He dominates the podcast space because he's that great. Enough said. If you're not familiar with Jimmy Dore, he's a comedian and a podcast commentator who is just spot on and hysterical. He's just another great source for you to go to for news and commentary. Links to the Joe Rogan Experience and the Jimmy Dore Show are in the description below. Remember, everyone wakes up at their own pace, and you are not alone. It's our job to help and educate as many people as possible. Until next time, God bless America, God bless this podcast, and God bless you. Stay frosty, my friends.